Good Friday morning of the fourth week. This is from the book of Wisdom. This reading, wisdom is a late literature. It's already highly influenced by the Hellenic world, the Greek world. It is a true wisdom literature. It now becomes reflective as opposed to narrative, where it's not telling a story as much as it's sharing a wisdom. See, I can hear this thing. I believe that this was written in the 2nd century BC. I may be wrong, but it's after Plato. The Platonic influence is there, then the Hellenic influence. This is a very, very reflective. It's one of the richest times in human history, certainly Western history. The foundations of our civilization are really coming together there. You've got Greek philosophy, Roman law, Greek philosophy, and now Judaism at extremely high reflective level, the wisdom literature, and the New Testament. You want to know where we came from? Roman law, Greek philosophy, Judeo-Christianity. If you want to understand Western civilization, it's hard to get around it. We're trying to deny the Judeo-Christian part. You can try to deny it till your teeth fall out. The bottom line is, not that we're a Christian nation in that sense, but we are a Judeo-Christian Romanized culture. Our roots of our personalism runs very, very deep into the past, who and what we are. And it comes under a keen sense of the divine presence, articulated and defended and philosophized by the late Jewish writers, the Christian writers, and the Greek philosophers. They weren't believers, but they brought about a scientific reflection of the West. We're indebted to all the above and more besides. So this is now a wisdom literature. I'll read it to you, okay? The wicked said among themselves, thinking not aright, let us beset the just one, because he's obnoxious to us. He sets himself against our doings. That was said exactly about Socrates. Just read the Apology by Plato. It's a beautiful reading. It's Socrates' trial, you see? He reproaches us for our transgressions of the law, and charges us with violations of our training. So did Plato. So did Aristotle. But Socrates is the quintessential example of it. Okay? And so is Christ. It's in that critical tradition of critiquing the times and calling it back to its roots, its most fundamental of all roots. See? He professes to have knowledge of God and styles himself a child of the Lord. No, remember, this is pre-Christian. But think of the Jewish community now and the prophetic tradition. See? To us, he is the censure of our thoughts. Merely to see him is a hardship for us, because his life is not like that of ours, of others, and different are his ways. That was as true of Socrates as it was true of Christ 3 centuries later, 4 centuries later. It's in the wind. Wisdom is incarnate. Wisdom is personal. And it's challenging the convention of the time. See? He judges us debased. He holds aloof from our paths. He holds aloof from our paths as from things impure. He calls blessed the destiny of the just and boasts that God is his Father. Of course, that's what will be said of Christ, okay? But it's also true of the Jewish people and the prophetic tradition. Let us see whether his words be true. Let us find out what will happen to him. For if the just one be the Son of God, he will defend him and deliver him from the hands of his foes. With revilement and torture, let us put him to the test. Think of Christ. The New Testament is based on this, that we may have proof of his gentleness and try his patience. Let us condemn him to a shameful death, for according to his own words, God will take care of him. That's exactly Plato's apology, that Socrates will now be with the gods in heaven. See? These were their thoughts, but they erred, for their wickedness blinded them. And they knew not the hidden counsels of God. They weren't wise, in other words. Neither did they count on a recompense of holiness, nor discern the innocent soul's reward. The innocent soul for Plato goes forever into this trans-death experience life, where he contemplates truth and beauty. That's Socrates. That's Plato's apology. That's Christ. That is Socrates' very speech. He's welcoming death because now he'd be free of all the limitations of life, physical life. He wants his soul to be free so that he can contemplate the forms, contemplate the ideas. Right? Christianity not only flows out of Judaism, it flows out of the Greek philosophical mind. It flows out of the Mediterranean. But you see what is said here, this is said about the Jewish people and the prophetic tradition. It's also said of later, retrospectively, of Christ for sure, almost word for word. But it's also true of the church. The church is in a sense, the embodiment of truth and wisdom in a world that rejects it, mocks it. It rejects the wisdom of the gospel as proclaimed by the church. I think this is especially true of our times. It's been true the last 100 and something years, when it was, it goes all back to the Renaissance actually, but really the last 150 years. It ceases to be the voice of a humanistic wisdom. It's not from its own doing. It's that we have chosen, we've betrayed it in many ways, our own foundational culture. We've rejected the voice of the church. Not that we're a slave to it, that we were. But there is a wisdom in the gospel that seems to transcend the inchoate wisdom of the world. Inchoate meaning it's all over the place. So often the wisdom of the world descends into praxis, just practice, and practice governed by political interests. See? That's the danger one of the dangers of our time. As we more and more abandon Christianity or privatize it into just being a matter of the heart sentiment, where is it seen and revered as a wisdom? I think also, and I don't say this disrespectfully at all, because I think the Protestant Reformation made the faith internal, and it should have been. It should have been all along, because it's a personal belief. But it also relativized it by not recognizing the authority of a church, the voice of a church, orthodoxy. It's the trouble. It's a tension between the two, the orthodox teaching and the internalization of it. When the wisdom of the church becomes the personal wisdom of individuals. The Protestants had it right about the last part, but they forgot about the need for orthodoxy, the tension between the two. I think this is 2 cents worth. But I see the church as a voice of wisdom in a world that has abandoned it. And to our horror, it was the Christian world that created the Second World War in Europe. It was the very heart of Christianity between Italy and Germany. Holy cow. And then at the counter to that, England, which is a Christian nation, and finally the Americas. And when you think about it, centers of Christianity, and in some ways, centuries and centuries of Christianity, abandoned the Christianity in favor of a political system of power and tyranny. And it led to horror. Not just the horrors of the Holocaust, but the horrors of war. The horrors of war, entire continent at war. See? With modern weaponry never seen before, where human slaughter, both on the battlefield and in the non-battlefield, their homes, in the cities, in civilian life. 20th century is testimony to what betrayal can lead. A betrayal of a wisdom proclamated by the church, by the Christian world, a gospel of hope, a gospel of life. We chose the gospel of death. Which pope said that recently? I think it was John Paul II, or was it John the 23rd who said it? We have chosen a gospel of death. We have. The 20th century is a century of horror. That was, I think, John the 23rd said that. He was right. When had the human race ever turned on itself with such viciousness, both in terms of genocide and war? We dropped the atomic bomb over Hiroshima. We killed 60,000 people in one flash second. No. God knows what we did in Germany, Berlin, and other places with the constant firebombing. In England, not just us, a world of horror. Now, Be careful who you worship and the wisdom that you espouse.